You must be saving up properly, right? So, how much do you have? George, my husband of many years, was trying to charm me with his sweet talk. I sighed at his words. I didn't feel like responding, but I knew my persistent husband would keep asking until I gave him an answer. I've got about $400,000 in the bank account. But remember, that money isn't for spending. I made sure to drive that point home to him. But trying to get the message across to him was pointless. He never listens. Ah, I see, he said, seeming satisfied. The next day, he disappeared from our home with the passbook and cards. Fed up with my foolish husband, I picked up the divorce papers he had left behind. Where on earth had he vanished to? Well, it didn't matter. In fact, this might be the perfect chance for me to disappear as well. With that thought, I took action. And as I vanished, my husband began frantically searching for me. My name is Susan, my 50th wedding anniversary with my husband is almost here. We were blessed with 2 children, Emily and Kevin. They both had graduated from college, found jobs, married, and started their own families. To outsiders, we must have seemed like a happy family. But there was something that had troubled me for years. It was my husband. We met through a matchmaking date. He was the son of my father's mentor. Honestly, I didn't have a great first impression of him. He was 2 years younger than me. Perhaps because of that, he seemed quite naive. And he gave off a somewhat irresponsible vibe at first glance. Moreover, he only talked about himself and never listened to me. It's essential to talk and learn about each other in an arranged meeting. But his stories were far from interesting. Actually, I'm quite entrusted with responsibilities at work. Things often don't run smoothly without me. So, I often finish work late. It's tough unless someone understands that, he declared right off the bat. I managed a wry smile, but frankly, I wanted to tell him that I couldn't deal with such a person. However, as I was searching for words, he pressed on. Well, you'll be an older wife, so you'll understand, right? Could it be that after all his one-sided talking, he was considering marrying me without even listening to my side? Is he sane? Well, I wonder. I had no choice but to respond that way, considering our parents and his parents were there. I thought he would realize I wasn't keen. Yet, for some reason, both he and his parents seemed to like me a lot. My parents were happy too. I couldn't bring myself to object. Back then, it wasn't uncommon to marry someone your parents chose for you. And everyone seemed so happy about it. I thought maybe living together would reveal his good sides. So, begrudgingly, I agreed to the marriage. After marrying, it wasn't that I couldn't see his good sides. True to his boasting, he seemed to do his job well. He went to work diligently every day, and although his career advancement wasn't exceptionally rapid, his salary steadily increased. We lived with my in-laws, but both my father-in-law and mother-in-law were kind to me. Despite the fact that my husbands had very few good qualities, we were fortunate in our circumstances and lived a peaceful life. However, as he passed the age of 40, our expenses gradually began to increase. When I asked why, he said it was customary at his company for superiors to treat their subordinates. I understood that much. But at the time, we had a daughter in college and a son in high school. The expenses were so significant that I had to dip into my savings to cover tuition and living costs. I spoke to him about it many times, but his response was always, "Aren't you the one managing it? Just handle it," which was incredibly selfish. Naturally, he didn't listen to my desperate pleas. On top of that, my in-laws fell ill at the same time, adding the burden of caregiving onto me. My husband left everything to me. Even when I suggested hiring a helper, he coldly said, "What are you here for? If you need help, get Emily and Kevin to chip in. Don't waste money. So, could you at least help out a bit? Just helping your father eat would be enough." That was my proposal. But his response was disappointing. "Caregiving isn't my job. If I don't work and bring in money, we'll all be in trouble." He always made plausible excuses like that, never offering a real solution. And on top of that, the frequency and amount of his outings only increased. I never intended to involve the children in caregiving, but seeing my situation, they often helped with household chores. Eventually, after my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law followed shortly after. While I was in grief, I can't deny feeling relieved from the burden of caregiving. Years passed. Our children, having graduated and found jobs, moved out, leaving just my husband and me in the house. He retired about 5 years ago. Yet, he still often leaves the house, saying he's going out to drink. And the expenses are still dreadful. One day, fearing we wouldn't survive if his wasteful spending continued, I said, "George, enough with the spending already. Do you really need to go out drinking so often after retiring? We have our lives to think about." But he looked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. Huh? I've worked hard all my life. I've got my pension and retirement fund. What's wrong with enjoying my retirement? There's a limit. If you spend more than we have, we won't be able to live. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. He never listens. I was utterly exasperated with him. A few days later. What are you looking at? I noticed him frozen, staring at his phone. As I was cleaning, I casually asked. He hurriedly hid his phone, acting suspicious. I thought it was fishy, but I had long lost interest in him. Is he having an affair? No, who would bother with such an inattentive old man? Ooh. No, it's nothing, he said and put away his phone. I continued vacuuming, paying him no mind. Then he spoke up. By the way, you said we were short on money the other day. But knowing you, you must have saved up properly, right? So, how much do you have? I couldn't help but look at him. His tone was almost ingratiating. I was dumbfounded. There's none. You're always the one withdrawing it, so you should know. But I'm talking about other accounts. I tried to dodge the question, but my persistent husband would surely keep asking until I answered. Feeling resigned, I blurted out. I've got about $400,000 in the bank account. But remember, that money isn't free to spend. If it's gone, we're really finished. I made this very clear to him. But making things clear to my husband was just impossible. Ah, I see, he said, looking satisfied. As much as it's embarrassing to admit, this is the man I married. I had anticipated that he would eventually start demanding that money too. But my expectation was betrayed. The next day, he vanished with the passbook and bank cards, leaving only a divorce paper behind. Such a heartless man. To say that my life has been wasted because of him wouldn't be an exaggeration. And yet, this was how he treated me. Taking all the money and running off, he must have thought it didn't matter what became of me. He must have been having an affair. With that thought, I swore to get thorough revenge and filled in the divorce papers. I immediately took action. My husband was the one who got the papers. That alone signified his intentions. After submitting the divorce papers to the court and having them accepted, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. I was about to inform my children about it on my phone. I noticed several missed calls. From my husband, no, my ex-husband. I could imagine him calling in desperation. But I owed him no conversation. If I went home, I would likely run into him. So, I immediately contacted my daughter. Hello, Emily? Mom, what's up? I explained the situation to my daughter. About how George ran off with the passbook and cards containing all our money. About submitting the divorce papers. And about the constant incoming calls. Without questioning the divorce, Emily immediately suggested, "Mom, come over to my place for now. It's better if you don't meet Dad." I took her up on her offer and headed to Emily's house. Within 10 minutes of my arrival, the doorbell at Emily's house rang. What should we do? It must be Dad. It's okay. Leave it to me. Emily hid me in the bedroom and went to the door alone. Dad, what's going on? I could hear Emily's voice from the entrance. As expected, the visitor was my ex-husband. Is Susan here? I can't get through to her. Oh, and I wanted to ask how to use that passbook. Just calm down. What happened? That's the thing, I can't withdraw money from the bank. So, I need to get in touch with Susan. He told our daughter. He seemed quite panicked. So that was it. The desperate tone in George's voice. I quietly listened to the conversation that reached my ears, a smile forming at the corners of my mouth. You can't withdraw the money? Why? My daughter sounded surprised as she asked. Then, George started to explain bit by bit. It seems there's a theft report on this passbook. I told them it should be fine since I'm her husband. But they won't let me proceed because it's under Susan's name. I need to get in touch with her. The desperation in his voice was almost laughable. Yes, after realizing the passbook was stolen, I immediately reported it to the bank and had it locked so it couldn't be used. Even a spouse can't use the passbook without my permission. And by then, he was no longer my spouse. So, he had no right to use that money. My husband talked with my daughter for a while, but then left after receiving a phone call. After coming out of the bedroom, I thanked my daughter, and she said, I found out why Dad took the passbook. Her words caught me by surprise. Was there a conversation I hadn't heard? But it all came down to the last phone call. I could hear someone shouting, "When will you pay back?" over the phone. Dad must be in debt. Debt? I was stunned by my daughter's revelation. What for, when, and from whom had he borrowed money? He had done all this without consulting me. And the shouting over the phone didn't sound like it came from a reputable lender. I knew he was foolish, but this was beyond my expectations. For now, he might be looking for you and could head to Kevin's place next. We should let him know. Yes. So, I reached out to my son, advising him not to engage with George if he showed up and assuring him that I was safe. Got it. It's about time that old man got what he deserved. He laughed. It seemed my children were aware of their father's selfishness. It made sense why my daughter didn't question the divorce. If anything happens, remember that Emily and I are on your side, Mom. Kevin's words brought me comfort. I felt truly relieved to have divorced. My phone continued to ring with calls from George, but I turned it off. I stayed at Emily's house, surrounded by her husband and grandchildren, enjoying a pleasant evening. The next day, turning on my phone brought immediate incoming calls. He really doesn't give up, but to my relief, it was an unknown number, not George. Answering the call, it was from the bank where the account was opened. Is there an issue? Well, about the theft report you made for the passbook, since yesterday, a suspicious man has been trying to use it. We confirmed the address and believe it's your husband. When we asked him to come in person, he insisted he wouldn't move until the account was cancelled. The bank employee sounded troubled. I was flabbergasted and offered my apologies. Then, I made one correction. While we currently share an address, we are divorced. I am single, and I have no husband. I'll visit soon to update my details. But please don't comply with that man's request to cancel the account. The employee assured me, understood. We will protect your deposits, so please rest assured. I reluctantly got up. I knew I couldn't keep running. It was time to confront my husband directly. Accompanied Emily, I headed to the bank. George, furious, had been moved to a separate room, and upon giving our names at the reception, we were directed there. Upon seeing us, George stood up and exclaimed, "Hey! Where were you yesterday? And you didn't even answer your phone, leaving me in a bind. Just hurry up and give me the money or make the payment already." George, with his arrogant attitude, was shouting at me. The bank employees were also shocked and tried to calm him down. How could he not be embarrassed, causing trouble for others as well? Emily apologized to the bank staff and asked for a moment to take her father away. Hearing their conversation, I spoke up. "No. What right do you have to say such things? What? I'm your husband. Can't you listen to what I'm saying?" I glared at him, who was still insisting on his usual rhetoric. "You're the one who left the divorce papers, remember? I filed them immediately. We're strangers now. You have no right to withdraw money from my account." At my words, he turned red with anger. "What? How dare you do something like that? Who's being unreasonable here? I heard you've borrowed money. You never even mentioned such debts to me. What have you been doing all this time? How did you? At that moment, he turned pale. Then, his phone started ringing again. It is likely a call to press him for repayment. He didn't even attempt to answer it. I sighed at the sight of my pitiful ex-husband. Your phone is ringing, aren't you going to answer it? He snapped back. I'm about to. As soon as he put the phone to his ear, a voice could be heard from the other end. George, when are you going to repay the money? Can you wait a bit longer? I'm at the bank right now. George mumbled, but the person on the other end was not having it. Is that so? Better hurry up, or the interest will increase. Please take care of it. The call ended. We were all left speechless. George couldn't even lift his head. Emily and I sighed. Anyway, it's troubling the bank staff to stay here, so let's go back home for now, Emily suggested. Just withdraw the money. Then I'll go home. George was stubborn, but in the end, he couldn't withdraw any money and was dejected. Come on, we're going home. With Emily's urging, he finally moved his heavy body and reluctantly followed us. How pathetic. Why would you even get into debt? Who did you borrow from? In the car, my daughter scolded George. He started to speak in a small voice. After turning 40, he disliked coming home to discussions about caregiving. To kill time after work, he started going to casinos, becoming addicted and continuing even after retirement, hiding it from me. I would nag him about money. And if he admitted it was because of gambling, I would only nag more. He wanted to do as he pleased without anyone complaining, especially after retirement. There were times he won and managed the finances with that money, but eventually, he started borrowing money. The reason he was checking his phone so often was apparently due to frequent messages about repayment. I thought he might not have been having an affair, but this was far worse. I can't believe it. It's embarrassing to say he's my father. Emily was genuinely disgusted and frustrated by George's actions. I felt the same way. How much is it? One. You mean $1,000? Emily inquired. Then, George, seemingly infuriated, raised his voice. It's $100,000. It couldn't possibly be just 1,000. What, are you trying to justify yourself now, you old fool? What are we supposed to do? I had no idea either. Finally, Emily lost her patience. And rightly so. A debt of $100,000. Not only is creating such a debt inexcusable for a family, but he also inquired about my savings. Thinking that after divorcing and repaying the debt, he could freely use the remaining $300,000 without any objections from me. I was foolish. I apologize. George said, apologizing, but there's no cure for such utter foolishness. An apology now changes nothing. We're strangers. I don't know you. That's all I said. After arriving home, I packed my belongings. George followed me around like a shadow. I truly apologize. Please don't leave. Don't abandon me. But he was the one who initially intended to abandon me. If you had successfully run off with my $400,000 as planned, what did you think would happen to me? He was at a loss for words at that. Proof that he hadn't considered me at all. I had no intention of helping him. Goodbye. Selling this house should cover the debt repayment, at least. Good luck. He continued to plead desperately. But his words didn't reach me. I was a bit scared by my lack of empathy towards him, but then, my words never reached him either. It's the same for both of us. I returned to my daughter's house in her car. Finally severing ties with that pathetic man and starting a new life. Later, a lawyer named Ken, hired by George under the pretense of discussing the division of assets post-divorce, came to see me. Such a fool. Instead of wasting money on a lawyer, he should have just quietly sold the house. Ken shared George's claim of splitting the $400,000 and the debt, but that was never going to happen. The debt was incurred by him alone, in secret. I have no obligation to take it on. Even Ken seemed exasperated, saying, I did explain that to him. Clearly, my husband hadn't listened, as usual. About the $400,000 in savings, that's money I saved and invested before I was married. I might have used some for the children's education and living expenses, but it's not a joint asset. It's my money. Bank transaction records are proof. I made sure to convey that about the money. Then Ken asked, "Is there no joint property? Maybe there's about $5,000 in savings?" But more importantly, the house we built after getting married might count since we lived there with my in-laws. It was a big house because we lived with them. And the mortgage was quite a burden. Then, the house would be split. Ken remarked with a wry smile. I gave Ken my best smile, saying, "Thank you for your understanding." Eventually, the house was sold, and I received half of the proceeds as part of the property division. I told him to sell the house and pay off the debt. I didn't want to leave any debt for the children to deal with after he was gone. Honestly, I hadn't planned on taking any money from the sale of the house. But it was his greed that led to this. He shouldn't have suggested dividing the assets. I just followed the proper procedures as he wished. Both my daughter and son laughed heartily when they heard the story. The $100,000 debt included exorbitant interest, so with the lawyer's involvement, George managed to repay it. But I don't know what became of him after losing his house, savings, and family. But as long as there's no remaining debt, it doesn't matter to me. Nothing good comes from associating with such a person. My son also decided to cut ties with him. A sensible decision, I believe. He's now renting an apartment and working day jobs. I hope he realizes this is the consequence of his actions and does his best. My daughter then suggested that I move in with her. I'm happy to spend my days with my grandchildren and daughter. Her husband is kind and interested in the investments I used to make, leading to many conversations. After living in an environment where complaints were the norm, this feels like heaven. If there was one good thing about marrying my husband, it was being blessed with my son and daughter. Knowing they're living happily now makes me feel all my efforts were worth it. Now it's my turn. It's never too late to change your life. I want to make up for the past and live happily for the rest of my life. Parasites from others need to get out. Lisa hurled those words at me. Ignoring my surprise, she continued. This house is under my dad's name, and as his real daughter, I have the right to live here. You're in the way, so could you please leave now? Hearing that, I was momentarily dumbfounded. But I quickly burst into laughter. Do you not know? I deliberately paused there. Lisa, curious about what I would say next, swallowed hard and stared at me intently. I gave instructions to the movers, who seemed troubled, to carry all the items to an empty room for the time being since there wasn't much to move. Amid the confusion, Lisa tried to sneak in, so I stopped her with my hand. This house is in my name. You and I are strangers. Please don't enter without permission. When I said that, Lisa's face turned bright red, and she shouted, I don't care, before storming off somewhere. After Harry passed away, I felt a simmering anger at being treated this way. I was determined to make her regret it. I had finally turned the tables. My name is Gina Smith, I'm 39 years old and work as a piano teacher. My husband Harry was 6 years older than me and an entrepreneur running his own company. We slowly nurtured our love after meeting through work. When we started considering marriage, Harry confessed something to me. Apparently, he had been married before. He had married his girlfriend at the time in his 20s, and they had a child named Lisa, but soon after, his ex-wife's infidelity came to light. She ended up incurring a significant amount of debt for her lover and even relinquished custody, resulting in Harry gaining custody of Lisa. Lisa, who had grown up in a single-parent family for a while, apparently didn't lack for anything as Harry's company was flourishing. However, as Harry's financial status got better, Lisa's demands became increasingly unreasonable. In middle school, she constantly wanted high-end cosmetics and to dye her hair, and she never listened no matter how many times she was told. Lisa, who grew up spoiled, was very hostile when introduced to me as her father's new partner during her high school years. I don't acknowledge you as a mother. I have a beautiful mom and a rich, kind dad, and that's enough for me. Although Harry never told Lisa about her mother's infidelity, she seemed to greatly admire her mother, who was said to be beautiful. I didn't necessarily think that was bad. In the end, Lisa never accepted me, so we decided to get married after she turned 18, graduated high school, and started working. I thought Lisa had grown into a respectable adult, but I never imagined things would turn out this way. Harry and I never wanted children of our own. For him, Lisa was his only child, and if we were to have a child together, Lisa would say, "I can't deal with a half-sibling." And we didn't know what she might do, so that was part of it. Given my age in the late 30s and the stories I heard from people who had kids, I started to feel that I probably wasn't cut out for parenting. Especially when I imagined Lisa, who was openly hostile towards me, and a hypothetical rebellious child of our own. I was certain I couldn't handle it. So we both agreed that we didn't want children and desired to spend a peaceful life together as a couple. Which led to our relationship and eventually marriage. Then, 2 years ago, after Lisa turned 18 and started working, we got married and were living an ordinary life as a couple. However, our peaceful days came to an end within those 2 years. Harry was diagnosed with cancer. It was already in the terminal stage, and all we could do was palliative care. The shock left me in a daze, unable to comprehend the prognosis or future treatment plans, and before I knew it, Harry was hospitalized and had started treatment. Even when I returned home, the days without anyone there continued, and I was worn out, yet another person came to add insult to injury. Yes, that person was Lisa. Technically, Lisa was my stepchild since we were married, but since we had never lived together, I didn't feel that strongly about it. It wasn't strange for a daughter to know where her father lived, but somehow, Lisa knew Harry had been diagnosed with cancer and hospitalized. Dad's got cancer, right? Since you're all out of sorts and he can't bear to watch, so he even let me know. Harry must have told her out of concern, but neither Lisa nor I found it amusing. But Lisa seemed to have her own plans and said with a smirk, "So, I've decided to move nearby. I have to take care of you since you're so down, and Dad needs someone to look after him, right? He'd rather rely on his real daughter than his new wife, wouldn't he?" Leaving such provocation behind, she left. I immediately contacted Harry and relayed the conversation to him, to which he apologized, saying, "I can't believe Lisa would say such a thing. I thought she had grown up, which is why I reached out to her, but instead, I've made you feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Harry is not at fault, and I want him to focus solely on his situation right now." Thinking it's not good to make a sick person worry, I said in as cheerful a voice as I could, "It's okay, I'll sort things out with her." But honestly, I'm not confident I can achieve that. Especially since I've always felt that parenting wasn't my strong suit. How am I supposed to deal with someone who's openly hostile towards me? Besides, Lisa is nearly 20 years younger than me. I mean, can I, a 39-year-old, really understand Lisa, who is in the prime of her youth at 20? Especially since we're not even related by blood? Such thoughts kept coming and going, leaving my mind in a mess. Thinking about it won't help, so for now, I decided to focus on my work and supporting Harry. With that forced mindset, I tried to sleep. But I ended up worrying about Harry and couldn't sleep at all, and in the days that followed, my students and their parents started expressing their concern. Before I knew it, half a year had passed. During this time, there were no major changes in my work, and Harry was fighting his illness, living each day with all his might. However, there was one concern that remained, and that was Lisa's presence, who had moved nearby 6 months ago. In these 6 months, I think I've lost more than 10 pounds. Even now, as I held a baby in my arms, I frowned, wondering why I had to do this. This baby's name is Emma. Believe it or not, she is Lisa's child. So, technically, I am Emma's step-grandmother, but Lisa takes advantage of this and always dumps Emma on me. 6 months ago, Lisa, true to her word, moved nearby. I had assumed she was alone, but to my surprise, she brought along Emma, her real daughter. It seems that after graduating from high school at 18, Lisa fell in love with a guy at the nightclub and spent most of her salary on him within half a year. Having heard from Harry that Lisa's mother was similar, it made me think, like mother, like daughter. But Lisa's love was unrequited, and she ended up getting pregnant and quitting her job. Already being willful and problematic, Lisa probably saw this as a convenient excuse to bail. She made a scene in front of the nightclub, received a settlement, and now she seems to be getting regular child support. She decided to have Emma for that reason, but a few months later, she apparently heard about Harry's illness. Unbelievably, Lisa thought this was lucky. After all, Dad has a lot of money, and if I suck up to him now, he might leave me a big inheritance. I still remember the shock I felt when I overheard Lisa talking like this to someone on the phone. From the bits of conversation and voice leaking through, I could tell the person on the other end was a man. But it didn't matter who it was. It was clear that Lisa only saw her father as a cash cow. And as his spouse, I have the right to half of the inheritance, which must be an inconvenience for her. I've even seen her consulting with that unknown caller on how a stepmother can renounce her inheritance rights. I couldn't bring myself to tell Harry, who is trying so hard to live, about this conversation. It would be too cruel. So I kept quiet, trying to deal with it by myself. But taking my silence as acquiescence, Lisa began to order me around more and more after she moved in. At first, it was just, I'm going to the bank for a bit, can you watch Emma, and things like that. But then it escalated to, I'm going to visit Dad at the hospital, or Emma's father is pestering me to hear about her. He's suddenly missing his daughter now. And she started treating me like a babysitter frequently. Of course, there was no payment involved. As much as she's my step-granddaughter, I couldn't bring myself to ask for money to take care of her. Fearing something might happen to Emma more if I refused. This gradually escalated, and just the other day, Lisa said something like this. I'm going on a trip with friends for about 3 days, can you look after Emma? You can do it, right? Since you're always at home anyway. Being always at home is only because my piano students come to my house for lessons in the evening. I wanted to say that, but arguing with Lisa only leads to more trouble, so I just agreed. Ironically, I find my granddaughter Emma very cute. I thought I couldn't handle childcare, but babies are indeed adorable, and I felt a tug at my maternal instincts. But at the same time, the thought of her going on a trip gave me a headache. Despite the significant expenses for Harry's treatment every month, taking care of Emma for 3 days would add even more to the expenses. I've been covering all the costs for Emma's diapers and milk while she's in my care. I thought it wasn't right to use Harry's money since I agreed to take care of her, and the burden didn't seem too heavy at first. But as the amount increased, it started to weigh on me. However, when I thought about it calmly, I started to wonder why I, as the grandmother, was doing what Lisa, the mother, should be responsible for. Lisa doesn't acknowledge me as her mother. Yet, I can't deny feeling upset about being used only when it's convenient for her. Still, Emma is innocent in all this, so I did what I could within my limits, but I was reaching my breaking point. I planned to have a serious talk with Lisa when she returned, to tell her to take responsibility and care for Emma herself. But right after Lisa left for her trip, I received a call from the hospital and rushed out of the house in a panic. Upon arriving at the hospital, I realized from the bustling nurses and doctors that Harry's time was near. Emma began to cry as if sensing something was wrong, but the nurses kindly told me not to worry about it. Harry was already unconscious, and it wasn't long before his passing was declared. His face, however, looked peaceful. It's said that hearing is the last sense to go after death, so maybe hearing Emma's cries and my voice helped Harry pass away peacefully. This thought made me break down in tears. The wake and other ceremonies proceeded smoothly, but Lisa was nowhere to be seen. Of course, I informed her of Harry's passing right away, but her response was shocking. Oh, really? But I've extended my trip, so I can't come back right away. Just handle everything as the surviving spouse, nobody will complain. And legally you're his wife, so take care of the rest. And take care of Emma too, she said before hanging up. I wanted to scream in frustration, but I held back for Emma's sake. Harry's relatives did ask why Lisa wasn't there, but I made up a plausible excuse, fearing a commotion if I revealed the truth. Lisa didn't show up even for the burial, leaving me brokenhearted, with only Emma providing some comfort. Lisa disappeared for 2 weeks after Harry's death, ignoring all attempts to contact her. Then, one day, the doorbell rang, and I found several well-built men at the door, claiming to be movers. Behind them stood Lisa, smiling smugly. Parasites from others need to get out. Lisa blurted that out to me. Ignoring my astonishment, she continued. I've given up my apartment and from today, I'll be living here. After all, this house is in Dad's name, and as his real daughter, I have the right to live here. You're in the way, so could you please leave now? Hearing this, my face momentarily showed shock, but I quickly burst into laughter. Don't you know? I deliberately left my sentence hanging there. Lisa, eager to hear the rest, swallowed hard and stared intently at me. Accustomed to me, the stepmother, always quietly following her orders, my sudden laughter must have felt more like fear than surprise to her. I gave instructions to the puzzled movers to carry all the items to an empty room for now, since there wasn't much. As Lisa tried to sneak in amidst the confusion, I stopped her with my hand. Do you think it's okay to enter someone else's house without permission? This house is in my name. I haven't adopted you, so technically, we're strangers. And you, more than anyone, don't acknowledge me as your mother. So don't pretend to be my daughter now after using me as a convenient babysitter and looking down on me all this time, I said. Lisa looked frightened by my words. I continued, unfazed, now that your trip is over, I guess it's okay to return Emma to you. After all, you're her mother. So take proper care of her. Lisa, angry, shouted, I don't care, and stormed off, leaving Emma behind. The movers watched in confusion. Trying to move into my house right after Harry's death, without any communication and insulting me in such a brazen manner, was outrageous. Anger bubbled up inside me. I was determined to make her regret it. I had finally stood up for myself. In the end, Lisa just dumped her stuff in my room and disappeared without a trace. Where she was living or how she was managing was a mystery since she had vacated her apartment. But I was too busy taking care of Emma to think about it. Fortunately, Emma was used to seeing my face since she was a baby and had grown very attached to me since we saw each other almost every day. I had a stock of milk and diapers, and several friends with childcare experience gave me advice after I explained the situation. I had no choice but to accept the situation and do my best. Given the situation, I've decided to take responsibility for Emma's well-being until everything is settled. That was my resolution. During the lesson at home, Emma fell asleep without crying, probably because the sound of the piano was soothing. But some parents found out about the situation and said that they would watch over her while I was teaching. Information about Lisa somehow leaked, and Harry's relatives would occasionally visit to check on her. When I had to be away for lessons or work, someone would always step in to watch over her. Although Harry is no longer with us, the support of his connections and the kind-hearted people around me has allowed us to live peacefully. 2 months after Lisa disappeared, she suddenly reappeared in front of me. For some reason, a police officer named David and a child welfare officer named Tom were there, claiming I had kidnapped a child. A baseless accusation. Lisa was demanding to David, arrest her already. She took my child. Just because she doesn't have one of her own, how dare, and to Tom. Isn't this your job? Hurry up and take the child back from this woman. I was dumbfounded, but David calmly listened to my side of the story. He seemed a bit incredulous too. It must have dawned on him that Lisa was acting out of spite. Although Tom tried to calm Lisa down, his words fell on deaf ears as her anger reached a boiling point. Realizing we were getting nowhere, I boldly stated, "You were the one who pushed Emma onto me. Everyone in the neighborhood knows it, including Harry's relatives. You can't deny it. Especially after you fled that day. And calling the police on me? That might just be obstruction of justice, don't you think?" David nodded in agreement. Technically, it might be more accurate to call it filing a false report. After all, Lisa had even filed a complaint to penalize me. But I doubted Lisa would understand the complexities, so I simply told her she was lying and obstructing police duties. Perhaps because she had heard the term obstruction of justice before, Lisa started to falter, showing the impact of those words was significant. I then continued to explain further. I continued, a mother who dumps her infant on someone else to go on a trip or pull stunts like this is the real problem, don't you think, Tom? Turning to Tom, it seemed Lisa finally grasped the situation. Fine, I'll let it go this time. I internally scoffed at her audacity, and David suggested to Lisa that they talk at the station. That was to be expected. After filing a complaint only to reveal it was all a sham, they couldn't just walk away. Lisa, pale-faced, turned to us as Tom added more pressure, sending her into a panic. I'm not to blame. It's all her fault. She continued to spout nonsense, but David and his colleagues greeted me and left the scene. A younger officer came by later for a brief inquiry, but thanks to the testimony of many, my innocence was quickly established. I'm grateful for everyone's support, especially since the police's sudden involvement must have been a shock, but they didn't hesitate to defend me. Lisa was ultimately not prosecuted but received a stern warning. After receiving the police's caution, Lisa became dejected and vanished for about 3 months. It's about time we decided on Harry's estate inheritance, but since Lisa is his biological child, she will be an heir. So, I need to get in touch with her. However, her whereabouts are unknown, and my attempts to contact her have been ignored, so I hired a private investigator to locate her. And then had experts repeatedly try to contact her. I even had a lawyer send a certified mail and took various measures, but Lisa continued to ignore everything. In the meantime, we marked the first anniversary of Harry's death. Almost concurrently, I received an email from Lisa. The message was simply, "Stop bothering me, I want nothing to do with this." That's when I went to family court to file for estate division mediation. But since Lisa wouldn't respond, the mediation didn't proceed, and ultimately, the family court had to conduct an estate division trial. And somehow the inheritance matter was concluded. Yet, despite her previous indifference, she showed up at my door complaining about being dissatisfied with the outcome. How can I, his own daughter, not inherit a single penny? This is absurd. She wanted the inheritance without the hassle. She must have assumed that as his daughter, she was entitled to a portion of the estate without question. Yet, upon learning she wouldn't receive anything, she was furious. Her silence was broken only when she realized there was no benefit for her. Her audacity was astounding, but I calmly presented her with the truth. Do you know when the inheritance proceedings began? In response, Lisa confidently replied. That was the day the results came from the family court, right? Hearing her answer, I laughed and said, "No, that's not it. You knew about your father's death on that very day, so the date of inheritance commencement goes back more than a year." I decided to explain it to Lisa in simpler terms so she could understand. Lisa claims it's unfair she's not receiving her rightful share. But the family court calmly judged based on Harry's will and the circumstances at that time. Firstly, Harry's will stated that he didn't want to give Lisa even a single penny and wished for me to inherit everything. Of course, this alone would infringe upon Lisa's rightful share. So normally Lisa would be entitled to at least half of the inheritance she could receive. However, despite my numerous certified mailings, consultations with experts, and court interventions, Lisa remained silent. Moreover, the decisive factor came when Harry wrote in his will, especially if Lisa abandons the inheritance discussions. I do not want her to have any share at all, leading to me inheriting the entire estate. The fact that I was taking care of Emma, a relative by marriage, also played a significant role. Upon hearing this, Lisa retorted, "I took care of a lot when Dad was hospitalized. You just took Emma from me and stayed at home. I contributed to Dad, so this is unfair." But even against that, I stood firm. Still lying at this stage? After I entrusted her to you, you went out, didn't you? I couldn't believe you'd calmly take care of Harry. So when I called after leaving Emma with you, you weren't there as expected. That's why I ended up taking Emma for clothes changes and such. There's evidence since visitors need to sign in when entering the ward, right? Keeping photos of the visitor logs, which included time and date, proved useful. This also became one of the reasons why the family court ruled in my favor for the full inheritance. Lisa, grinding her teeth in frustration, still tried to find a way, asserting, "Fine. Then I'll sue for infringing on my rightful share." But, as more than a year had passed since the inheritance began, her right had already expired. Upon hearing this, Lisa, unable to think further, exclaimed, "That's a lie. That's cheating. How come I, his own daughter, don't receive a penny of Dad's inheritance?" and started to panic. Eventually, Lisa slumped in defeat, so I asked, "What about Emma?" She replied, I can't even take care of myself, let alone a child, and irresponsibly fled. How absurd. I thought, and a few days later, Lisa made her last stand. I want Emma back because she's my child. Despite her previous refusals, her change of heart was puzzling. Indeed, Lisa is Emma's biological mother, and to me, Emma is a grandchild by marriage. Lisa looked triumphant, but I remained calm. Since that trip, you haven't taken Emma back to care for her at all. Don't you have any thoughts on this? Lisa retorted, you wanted to take care of her, not me. I asked Lisa once more, for over a year, you let me take care of your child while you were receiving child support payments, didn't you? Lisa looked puzzled for a moment but then laughed, saying, a mother has the right to receive that, so what's the problem? Hearing this, I smirked. Lisa, surprised by my sudden change in attitude, asked, what's that supposed to mean? I informed Lisa. That means you were receiving child support payments without properly taking care of your child. If this gets out, you'll be subject to penalties and might have to repay. Given that you've caused trouble for the police with your fabrications before, I don't think this will just slide. Lisa's face turned serious. Little did she know, I had recorded our entire conversation. It's set to automatically save to the cloud, so even if Lisa destroys anything, it won't matter. This could lead to charges of property damage, and either way, Lisa will end up in the care of the police. Finally, understanding everything, Lisa looked as if she was about to cry and said, you didn't say that, did you? Perhaps she meant whether I had reported this to the authorities. Of course, I reported it, I replied. Lisa's face turned even paler, and she began trembling with her hands over her mouth. No way. It's not a lie. They said they'd investigate, and I offered to provide any evidence I might have. This conversation will also be submitted as evidence. Hearing this, Lisa collapsed on the spot. Apparently out of energy to retaliate, she could only mutter complaints that I couldn't hear. Intending to deliver the final blow, I said, since I hired a professional to find your whereabouts and sent a certified mail, I know about the boyfriend you're relying on for financial support. You moved in with him after leaving your apartment, pretending everything was fine, right? Lisa looked up at me. Not only was it about not raising children, but in cases where someone is helping with living expenses. Receiving child support payments can lead to arrest for fraudulent receipt. Lisa didn't like raising her child alone and moved nearby at the right time after getting a call from the father, pushing Emma onto me. Then, Lisa, who had been fooling around, got a boyfriend, left her apartment, and tried to live with him in my house, which she attempted to take over. However, since the house was already in my name due to a lifetime gift, that didn't work out. And she probably ended up moving in with her boyfriend by telling him some story. Although it was mostly speculation, seeing Lisa's face again made it seem like all of it was true, as she had a somber look on her face. And then, as if this was her last stand, she said something like this. It's fine, I've realized I need Emma to receive the child support payments, so give her back now. Anyway, it annoys me how happy you seem to be with Emma, so I've come all this way to take her back, she said, giving a childish reason for wanting Emma back now. I felt a surge of anger towards Lisa, who viewed her child merely as a means to make money, yet I maintained a composed expression and replied, sure, but shouldn't that conversation happen after discussing it with Emma's father? Ignoring a puzzled Lisa, I turned towards the living room and called out, Ryan, could I have a moment? Frightened by the familiar name, Lisa tried to flee, but unable to muster the strength in her legs, she remained rooted to the spot. Soon, I heard footsteps approaching, and a man appeared, holding a delighted Emma. His name was Ryan, Lisa's ex-husband and Emma's biological father. I had heard from Lisa that the father at the nightclub had fled due to a lack of responsibility. But I wondered if such a father would really pay alimony and child support regularly. If he was that responsible, he probably would have quit working at nightclub and stayed together. Thinking this, I had a detective investigate Lisa's past for the inheritance case. That led me to Ryan, who turned out to be a regular employee with no past of working at nightclub. Taking a bold step, I mentioned Emma's name and reached out, and he easily agreed to meet. When I brought Emma to see him, Ryan, with tears in his eyes, said, I've finally been able to meet my daughter. I was so happy when you contacted me. The truth is, our divorce was due to Lisa's affair. But she used her position as the mother to take Emma's custody away from me, leaving me to only pay a small amount of child support. As he said this, Ryan's gaze, while holding Emma's small hand, was filled with the love of a true father. This reaffirmed my belief that only parents who truly love and care for Emma should be raising her. Which is why I've consulted child welfare services and the administration about this situation numerous times. Technically, Lisa currently has custody, but it's clear from her actions over the past year that she hasn't been properly raising Emma. Is it really the behavior of a mother to only dump her child on someone she harbors hostility towards when it's convenient? Without even formalizing an adoption? As I kept making appeals, the staff at the administration gradually began to sympathize with Ryan and Emma. I wasn't just working on the inheritance over this past year. I've been thinking about getting Emma back to where she belongs as soon as possible. In the process of handling the inheritance, I paid extra for a lawyer's advice to help Ryan regain custody, all done discreetly. Everything is already in place. Ryan, now 26 and being considered for a promotion to section chief, has no financial issues. There are many who would vouch for Ryan's character and his contributions, and despite Lisa's mistreatment, he has a track record of properly paying both child support and Lisa's living expenses. With this, it's clear who has the upper hand in any custody battle. Lisa, who neglected Emma and pushed her onto the stepmother, who found her an inconvenience for her romantic life. Ryan, despite enduring Lisa's treatment, has shown genuine concern and frequently checked on Emma's well-being after learning about the situation. I was aware that Lisa already had issues with fraudulently receiving child support payments, and there were problems with her boyfriend as well. Your current boyfriend is the one working at nightclub, right? The one you were talking on the phone with before. But there's still another man supporting you financially, isn't there? You're drowning in debt from spending too much on them. The financial supporter has also noticed your double life and has left. And your boyfriend from nightclub is about to dump you because he realizes he can't get any more money out of you. Ryan will make a much better and loving father than you, I said, delivering the final blow. My words were the last straw, and Lisa cried out loudly, apologizing deeply. Of course, no one forgave her. Finally, Lisa received her comeuppance for treating her own child as a tool for money and using me, the stepmother, and even her ex-husband, Ryan, for her convenience. After some time, with the help of friends, lawyers, and others, the custody battle concluded with Ryan gaining custody of Emma. My acquaintances, the parents of my students, and Harry's relatives asked me if it was really okay. They were probably questioning if it was alright to simply hand over Emma to Ryan just because he is her biological father. Especially after all the hardships I had endured for over a year. Indeed, I struggled with the decision, but I didn't want to keep Emma away from a father who loves her. But first, let me tell you what happened to Lisa. Firstly, it seems Lisa was arrested for the child support issue. Not actually raising the child, the existence of a boyfriend from nightclub, and another man supporting her financially were significant factors. And she was caught for fraud. Eventually, she received a suspended sentence, but then the custody battle erupted, and Lisa was in despair. Unable to escape, and with various evidence and testimonies against her, the judgment was passed to transfer custody to Ryan as the most suitable decision. Afterwards, Lisa lost everything, including Emma, her boyfriend, the man who supported her financially, and even her own savings and reputation. At that time, it seems she was working as a temp, which didn't pay well. And her poor work attitude led to her being laid off at the worst possible time. As a result, she lost her job and fell so far as to become homeless. Without a home address, she couldn't find a decent job. And she was repeatedly turned down for live-in part-time positions due to her lack of work history and qualifications. This is truly a case of karma and getting what one deserves. As for me, I was living a modest life without using Harry's inheritance. I believe that Harry probably wanted to share his inheritance with Emma, his granddaughter. However, he must have been afraid of involving Emma by writing that in his will. That's why I always made sure to give Ryan a gift from Harry's inheritance for Emma's special occasions. Ryan, for some reason, recently moved close to me and suddenly confessed his feelings. While visiting Emma, I realized I've fallen in love with you. I didn't say anything because it was a difficult time, but Emma is attached to you. Gina. She sees you as her mother. I know it's disrespectful to you as a widow and to Harry as my father-in-law, but please. Would you become a part of our family? Hearing such words, one can't help but be conscious of the feelings involved. As it turns out, there was more to Harry's will. It wasn't related to the inheritance, but it concluded with this. After I'm gone, if you find someone who loves you, Gina, please be happy with him. Your happiness is my happiness. Harry, usually a man of few words, must have tried his best to convey his feelings through writing. I'm considering what's best for Harry, Ryan, and Emma. Little did I know at the time that I would be attending Emma's elementary school entrance ceremony a few years later. My name is Linda, and I'm a 55-year-old widow. I currently live in New York with my daughter. My daughter, a 25-year-old office worker, is quite beautiful, even from my perspective. That's why she often seems troubled by unwanted attention from creepy men and unpleasant experiences. Recently, she mentioned feeling uncomfortable due to an incident on the subway. Hearing only this, it might seem like she's only had hardships, but there have been good times too. She's been quite popular. Since middle school, boys have never left her alone. Although she's quite shy, she somehow ended up dating boys who approached her. Being my only daughter, I was worried, but it seems she enjoyed her school days. However, after advancing to a women's college, she was mostly surrounded by girls. During her time at the women's college, she didn't interact much with boys and said she didn't need a boyfriend. I hope that one day she'll have a happy marriage. That's because my own marriage was short-lived. My husband, her father, passed away at a young age. He worked in sales and was always driving. I think salespeople who have to make rounds outside, whether under the scorching sun or in the snow, really have it tough. Back then, I was a full-time housewife taking care of our baby daughter. My husband usually came home just before the midnight. He worked for a company with a lot of overtime, so he was always exhausted. But he never got angry, even if I hadn't finished the housework, and he would wash the dishes left in the sink. After taking a bath, he would also meticulously clean the bathroom. He was a good husband. Then, one day, he suddenly never returned home. He made way for a car that was tailgating him while on the highway. That car, perhaps frustrated at being overtaken by my husband in the passing lane, flashed its lights and honked like a maniac. This is what I heard later from someone who witnessed the scene. Despite my husband moving out of the way, the tailgating driver continued to pursue him. Frightened of being tailgated again, my husband moved back into the passing lane. But the other car, accelerating to full throttle, crashed into him with such force. Both cars were wrecked in the collision. My husband was wearing a seatbelt, and there were airbags, but he died from hitting his head on the glass. Furthermore, flames broke out, and the surrounding area turned into a sea of fire. The other car was also destroyed, and its driver was confirmed dead at the scene. I remember hearing about a terrible accident on the highway that made the news. Witnesses testified that my husband was not at fault. But what followed was a nightmare. Unbelievably, the other driver was not insured. It was a hopeless situation. So even when I thought about claiming compensation, it seemed impossible, leaving me in a state of panic. With the other driver deceased and uninsured, I felt despair, wondering if there was anything to be claimed at all. It's not that I wanted money, but it felt terribly unfair that my husband had died. I thought about taking legal action, but people around me made heartless comments. Being young at the time, I was the subject of curiosity and gossip among the neighborhood ladies. Linda, even if you go to court, it's pointless. After all, the other driver is deceased and was a loner, right? You won't get any compensation. So why not just give up? Well, yes, but I understand you're sad about your husband's passing, but you have survivor's benefits and life insurance, right? You'll manage somehow. Do you really need to cling to money? Wait, no, it's not about the money. I just wanted to clear my husband's name. But there's no one to take revenge on, and you can't even do that now. Instead, you need to move forward. You're still young. And you can start over. You're only in your 20s, why not remarry? That would secure your life, right? I can't imagine being with anyone other than my husband. Well, you say that, but you are meant to be supported. Indeed, I was supported. As a homemaker, I was under my husband's care and lived a comfortable life. But I never wanted to leech off a man, nor did I consider finding someone new to support me after that. It's not that I think being a homemaker or remarrying is bad. It's just that it wasn't for me. My husband and I married after a great love affair, so I couldn't possibly think of being with anyone else after he was gone. He was the one I decided to be with till the end, no matter what. Why did he have to leave so soon? And to think, it was due to a tragic accident. After all these hardships, I just want my daughter to be happy. If she could live a long, healthy, and happy life with the husband she loves, that would be enough for me. One day, my daughter came to me with a smile, saying she had something to tell me. It seems her boyfriend proposed to her. I knew she had a boyfriend, but I hadn't met him. I wondered how he proposed. Tyler gave me an engagement ring yesterday. It's from Harry Winston. Look. Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. What does Tyler do for work? He's a salesman at the major A bank. Oh, the famous A bank. He must be a very respectable person. He must have done well in his studies too. Yes, he graduated from K University's law school, so he's really smart. And Tyler's father works in investment banking. His mother is a homemaker. Wow, truly an elite family. That's wonderful. And we were talking yesterday, and we'd like to pay a visit to introduce ourselves. We're planning to go to Tyler's house together. He said he'd like you to come along too, Mom. I'd feel uneasy going alone. Well, if that's the case, I suppose it's fine. Thank you, Mom. I'll be getting married soon. My daughter was wearing a gorgeous ring and beaming with joy. Then she carefully placed it back in its box, treating it like a treasure. Given it's from such a renowned brand, it must have been incredibly expensive. I'm not very knowledgeable about jewelry, but considering the size of the diamond in the center, I thought it might cost over $10,000. I've seen similar items in fashion magazines I occasionally read, but that's just a guess without any proof. To be able to afford such an extravagant ring, he must be wealthy. Indeed, I've heard that salaries at major banks are incredibly high. Top earners there can easily make about $80,000 at a young age. With the average salary being around $40,000, they're earning double that. Considering his father also works at a major bank, they must be quite wealthy. Then, the day came for my daughter and me to make our visit. Not wanting to overdress, I chose a subdued black dress with a cardigan and a beige handbag. I opted for beige for the bag and shoes to avoid looking too much like I was in mourning, given the predominance of black. My daughter was checking her boyfriend's family home address on her phone. Though he lives alone in a different apartment, his family home seems to be a bit away. Their family home is an apartment, but not just any apartment. It's actually a high-rise luxury condominium. Entering the apartment, I couldn't help but think, this really is a family of major bank employees. We arrived at Tyler's family home. Since they mentioned they would be waiting, I assumed they were already inside. When I rang the doorbell, a mother drenched in sequins appeared. Her dress was so glittery, I wondered if she was about to perform at a New Year's music show. The mother's dress was adorned with pink sequins, but she added a purple shawl over it and wore heavy makeup, which made her appearance even more eccentric. Please come in, you must be Amy. Welcome. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, I'm Linda, her mother. Nice to meet you. Oh my, such a plain outfit you have on. I've never seen such a poor-looking dress. Excuse me? Oh, it's nothing really. I was momentarily stunned by her remark. I couldn't grasp what she was saying and was left speechless. Was she looking down on me? But why should I be looked down upon? I've never met her before, so there was no reason for her to belittle me. I decided it must have been a misunderstanding. Perhaps she's just the type to speak her mind without thinking. Still, I had to remind myself that while it might be a bit troubling, she probably meant no harm. The interior was impressive, with the living room alone being quite spacious. A large sofa was placed in the center of the room, where the father was seated. The father was wearing calm beige trousers and a gray vest. The formal attire worn inside the house might be for the marriage meeting. But I had the impression that such dressing could be part of their usual attire. It seemed like he was accustomed to wearing it, as if it were his regular casual wear. Then, from somewhere, my daughter's boyfriend Tyler arrived. He had the appearance of a fine young man, the epitome of freshness. The mother then kindly suggested that we take a seat on the sofa. The sofa was U-shaped, spacious enough to comfortably accommodate 4 people with room to spare. My daughter and I were seated at one end of the sofa. The mother went to prepare some drinks for us. The mother, who brought us the drinks, greeted us with a smile. Although her smile appeared malicious earlier, this time it was very friendly. I decided to chalk it up to my misunderstanding. It would be rude to think ill of someone I've just met. I realized my own character flaws. However, it turned out to be a misunderstanding indeed. Because as the marriage meeting commenced, my daughter and I were about to experience something incredibly unpleasant. Tyler, the boyfriend, sat between his parents, and the marriage meeting began. There was a brief greeting from him, but I felt a bit uneasy because there was no statement like, "I will cherish your daughter," directed towards me. Perhaps he avoided it because there was no father to address. Indeed, since our family is without a husband, it's impossible to address my daughter's father, who was my husband. After all, he has already passed away. However, I thought it would be appropriate for him to at least assure me, the mother, that he would cherish and ensure the happiness of my daughter. Maybe he was just too nervous to remember his lines. Despite the grand ring he gave, I couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. Then it was our turn to speak. First, my daughter introduced herself. "I'm Amy, and I'm in a relationship with Tyler. We've gotten engaged. He proposed, and I also wish to marry him. Please give us your blessing and accept our marriage." "Well, yes, but, you see, Amy, it's just that. I hate to say it, but it's because you come from a rough background." I was taken aback, doubting my ears for a moment. They suddenly started criticizing my daughter, saying she was poorly raised. I've always believed I raised her well, facing her directly no matter how busy I was. And she grew up straight and true, never going astray. Losing her father at a young age must have been tough on her. Yet, she never complained to me about such hardships. I wondered why they would make such remarks, and then the father made an even more unbelievable statement. "So, it seems you come from a single-parent family, but what does your mother do for work? Is it what I think it is? Given it's a single-parent household, perhaps picking up trash? Well, janitorial work seems fitting for singles, doesn't it? Single mothers can only do so much, after all." Well, that's... Or maybe you're a factory worker. Doing monotonous tasks and wasting your days away, surely? Perhaps just assembling parts in a factory, right? That's so different from us. Tyler and I are elite bankers at a major bank. Indeed, dear. With both you and Tyler being bankers at a renowned bank. It just wouldn't do if the bride comes from a single-parent family and her mother is a trash collector. It wouldn't be a good match at all. Right, that's what I thought. You're stuck in a menial job, aren't you? Well, it can't be helped. People from single-parent families usually lack education and are, frankly, not very bright, so they end up in low-end jobs, don't they? Oh, how distressing. The only reason I'm able to be a stay-at-home spouse is because I attended a prestigious college, worked in an administrative role at a bank, and then met my husband. I have nothing to complain about with my husband and son, who are both outstanding. However, I'm troubled by the imbalance when the woman our son is marrying comes from a single-parent household, and her mother works in waste management. I feel it's an unfair stigma, and I worry it reflects on us. Oh, how dreadful. The mother pinched her nose, making a gesture as if to suggest that I smelled bad. I always maintain cleanliness and certainly do not have an odor. I was so frustrated when I heard that out of the blue, so I decided to talk back. Actually, I'm not a garbage collector. I'm a lawyer. What? Really? A lawyer, you say? Yes, a lawyer. I'm the managing partner at Sunflower General Law Office. That's the place with the advertisement, right? the Sunflower General law firm that's expanded nationwide. Yes, it started as a small office, but as we attracted many talented lawyers, it grew to its current size. Thanks to that, I'm incredibly busy and the firm is very profitable. Would you like to know the annual revenue? Well, to make it simpler, I'll just tell you about my take-home pay. It's roughly $1 million. $1 million? What are you saying? But, you come from a single-parent family. And Tyler told me you were only a high school graduate. It's impossible for someone who hasn't been to university to become a lawyer. Please, don't lie. You really are lying, aren't you? Without studying in a law faculty, you wouldn't have the necessary legal knowledge, even for the old bar exam. You're trying to deceive us with such lies, but it's pointless. Are you targeting our wealth? Because we're wealthy. You must be trying to ingratiate yourself with us. Unfortunately, I have no interest in ingratiating myself. In fact, my family is wealthier. I didn't physically attend a university but did go through a distance learning program. After high school, I worked as an office worker at a general company, then met my husband and left my job when we got married. However, after my husband passed away, I was determined to become a lawyer. So I studied at a distance learning university while raising my daughter and passed the bar exam on my first attempt. So, you're really saying you're the managing partner of Sunflower General Law Firm? Yes, that's correct. Oh, here's my business card. I always carry them with me so I can work from anywhere. Here you go. I have a habit of carrying business cards everywhere, so I pulled one out of my card holder and handed it to the father. Upon seeing the business card with my photo, it seemed he finally understood that I was indeed the head of a law firm. Since I don't appear in the TV advertisement, he seemed skeptical at first. But as it became clear that I am genuinely a lawyer, he seemed to become frightened. You've been saying all sorts of things about us, but isn't that considered an insult? I hope it doesn't constitute a criminal offense. Well, please wait a moment. I didn't mean any harm. Me too. Can you please stop being so assertive all of a sudden? Isn't this an abuse of your professional position? I'm not abusing my position as a lawyer. I'm upset as an individual who has been insulted. While I can tolerate it, I wouldn't want my daughter to marry into a family like yours, with people like you as in-laws. Tyler, you've been silent this whole time. What do you think? Well... Hey, Tyler, why did you propose to me? If I had known your parents were this cruel, I wouldn't have said yes. What was your real intention? I thought Amy would do anything I told her to because, you know, I'm busy with work and I don't want to bother with household chores. So, I wanted someone who would become my wife to do everything for me. That's why I proposed to Amy. It's convenient to have a servant at home, right? A servant, you say? A wife is essentially a servant, right? If I had a servant who did everything I said, I could relax and focus on my work. The work Amy does seems simple enough that anyone could do it, right? But I work at a prestigious bank as a loan officer, where mistakes are not tolerated. Women are simple, inferior to men, and I wondered if she would devote herself to me. Amy really is simple. Especially to accept a recycled engagement ring. What do you mean by that? So, that ring was actually given to a previous girlfriend when I proposed to her. Then, she found out about my cheating and returned it to me. I can't believe this. How awful. I never thought Tyler could be such a person. Give me back my precious time. Isn't it Amy's fault for falling for me? I thought a girl from a single-parent family might be okay, but as expected, my parents opposed it. And yet, you being a lawyer's daughter, weren't you the one deceiving me? I haven't deceived anyone. It's just that you never asked about my mother's job, so I didn't tell you. But you're actually the head of a super famous law firm group, right? And you're telling me your net annual income is $1 million? Are you kidding me? You're wealthier than us. And here we are, barely making ends meet. Well, living in a high-rise luxury apartment doesn't exactly scream barely making ends meet though. Our rent is $5,000, and my mother shops at expensive stores, putting us nearly in debt. I thought your salary could help. You work at a decent company, right? Your salary must be over $2,000. Were you planning to use all of my salary for your lavish lifestyle? Oh, how despicable. I was foolish to have fallen for such a man. Let's go home. Mom. Indeed, it's best to call off the marriage with such a person. There's no further need for us to stay, it's a waste of time being here. Please wait a moment. We'd be in trouble if we let someone with a net income of $1 million slip away. Please, let Amy marry my son. Is that so? I couldn't help but let my voice sound strange due to the sheer nonsense of it all. Realizing that Tyler was a terrible man, I decided to leave immediately, but it seems his father was dazzled by my annual income. Initially, he looked down on us because we were a single-parent family, but the moment he found out about my good income, he completely changed his tune. And then he had the audacity to suggest my daughter marry his foolish son. I thought to myself, I'm not that foolish. Why on earth do I have to deal with this family? Marriage is a union between two families, so if my daughter married Tyler, I would have to interact with them as relatives. Dealing with this insane family could potentially destroy my own sanity. I couldn't make sense of anything they were saying and decided to ignore the father and leave with my daughter. But the mother grabbed my sleeve and wouldn't let go. Her face was desperate, and no offense, but it reminded me of an evil witch. Chasing after me while huffing and puffing, and grabbing at my sleeve, she was far more terrifying than any horror movie I've seen. She must think of me as a walking bag of money, or an ATM. I won't let you leave. You're not going anywhere until your daughter agrees to marry my Tyler. Please. Let your daughter marry him and become part of our family. Oh, how I look forward to your support from here on. I never intended to offer support, and I'd like to drop the marriage talk, okay? Right, Amy? We're done with this family, aren't we? Yes, marrying into this family would drive anyone insane. I'll start a new romance instead. Goodbye. Wait a minute. Are you perhaps misunderstanding something? Even if Tyler and I were to marry, why would my mother need to provide financial support? The whole notion is absurd. It's true that Tyler and your father work at a well-known bank. But isn't a rent of $5,000 excessively high and beyond your means? And you say you're struggling because you only shop at high-end supermarkets. But couldn't you save money by being more frugal? But I want to indulge. My family was wealthy, you know. Spending a lot of money is refreshing for me. Please, Amy. Go ahead with the marriage and give me a taste of the good life. No, please stop this. Amy, let's run. My daughter and I dashed away from the high-rise apartment. The screams we heard were terrifying. However, the police arrived shortly after, and when we sneakily checked, it seemed there was a fight among the three of them. The high-rise is well soundproofed, so making some noise shouldn't have been too bothersome. But someone must have called the police due to noise in the common areas. Later, I found out that Tyler had angered his parents by calling us bottom dwellers of single-parent families. And they were upset with him for not finding out sooner that I was a lawyer's daughter. Tyler wanted a wife who could earn money like a servant outside the home. And his parents also wanted a servant, preferably a woman from a good family. I thought it was all so trivial, but there was more. Incredibly, while causing a commotion in the room, something unimaginable emerged. It was a photo of the mother engaged in unsavory acts with a man unknown to me. It seems it was hidden but came out during the fuss. This led to an even bigger showdown, and Tyler's father demanded a divorce. It was almost amusing to see the couple who had insulted me facing divorce. And audaciously, Tyler's mother came to my office, hoping to gain an advantage somehow. But after hearing her out, it was clear she was at fault, so I couldn't represent her. After all, she had lied to the other man, claiming to be a widow for 10 years. Tyler's mother was a housewife without her own money. So, Tyler's father wanted to claim damages from the other man, but since the mother had deceived him, it was unlikely they could get any money. That's why I declined the case. Unfortunately, as a lawyer, I don't take on just any case. To avoid being accused of fee fraud or retainer fraud, I don't accept cases that I know from the start are likely to be lost. This approach is better for both the client and the lawyer. Personally, I don't favor lawyers who take on any case only to end up saying they couldn't secure any compensation. A confident lawyer only takes on cases they know they can win. It might seem cold to clients, but it's to ensure they don't lose their retainer fees. Then, Tyler, learning I was a lawyer, started stalking my daughter, wanting to reconcile. My daughter was so distressed that she filed suit and a restraining order was obtained. This should keep him from approaching my daughter. It's outrageous how he changed his attitude completely once he found out I was a successful lawyer. After all, it was for my husband's sake that I decided to become a lawyer in the first place. After he passed away, I was at a loss about how to go on with my life. The thought of living in constant anxiety while raising my daughter alone nearly drove me mad. I wished I had a marketable skill, but I had no valuable qualifications. I had taken a bookkeeping course in high school, but I was working as an office worker, unable to utilize that qualification. It's hard to imagine now, but back then, many companies had female employees doing menial tasks like making tea and photocopying. I was initially assigned to the General Affairs Department instead of the Accounting Department where I wanted to be, due to a lack of vacancies. Day in, day out, making tea, I gained no real skills. Then, through a friend's introduction, I met my husband, and after dating, we got married. After becoming a housewife, I was dependent on my husband's income, and after our child was born. Child rearing was so demanding that I didn't even have the time to think about acquiring any qualifications. However, after my husband's death, I started questioning whether I should just carry on as before. Sure, there were survivor's benefits and life insurance. So, I could somehow manage to live. But the $100,000 from the life insurance would be spent quickly. Our home loan was covered by group credit life insurance, so I wouldn't have to pay the mortgage anymore. But that wasn't the point. I did some research and found a competent lawyer who informed me that it was possible to receive compensation even if the other driver had passed away and hadn't been insured voluntarily. After negotiations, I was able to receive compensation. At that time, I realized how powerful lawyers can be. As I said before, it wasn't about the money for me. I just couldn't bear the thought that my husband had died in such a terrible accident and we would receive nothing for it. I decided to become a lawyer myself and help others in the future. So, I began studying law. I enrolled in the law department of a correspondence university, balancing my studies with childcare. Honestly, it was manageable at first, but as the technical terms became more frequent, I struggled and had to constantly refer back to the initial summaries. The unique phrasing of statutes and case law was unfamiliar to me, so studying probably took twice as long as it would for the average person. But I couldn't let that defeat me if I wanted to become a lawyer, so I kept studying relentlessly. Somehow, I had to get through the bar exam to become a lawyer. Passing the bar exam felt like finally reaching the starting line. The bar exam was incredibly difficult. I solved many past questions and studied by sacrificing my sleep while my child was asleep. I probably studied 10 to 15 hours a day. So, I don't have any memories of taking my daughter, who was still a baby or toddler at the time, out anywhere. Looking back, I feel I was unfair to her. Thanks to my intense studying, I managed to pass the bar exam. After completing my legal training, I started working as a lawyer at a law firm. It was tough working every day while putting my daughter in daycare, but it was rewarding. Eventually, I decided to specialize and opened my own office. Based on my experience, I thought a law firm specializing in traffic accidents would be a good idea. With the increase in working women, various issues arose, so I also decided to offer consultations for women. Although social insurance labor consultants are knowledgeable about labor issues, lawyers come into play when it goes to court. One of my clients mentioned that within their organization, there was a noticeable disparity between men and women, with women being assigned only simpler tasks. It reminded me of my own experiences as a company employee. Years, even decades, have passed, and nothing has changed. I also received quite a few requests from men. The term toxic workplace has been around for a while now, but rather than decreasing, such workplaces seem to be on the rise. I've heard from men who feel like they're on the brink of a mental breakdown due to harsh working conditions. While reflecting on how everyone is striving hard to survive, I worked for my client. That's why my office specializes in traffic accidents and labor disputes. I'm also able to draw on my own experiences from my time as a company employee. More importantly, having lost my husband, I understand the feelings of families affected by traffic accidents and the complexity of the procedures involved, which has earned the trust of the victims I represent. Even as a single mother, I've made my own efforts. And I have indeed achieved results. Lately, the number of requests has increased, which I believe is a testament to the hard work of both myself and my staff. I'm committed to continuing to be a good lawyer for everyone. In the world, there are tales of cruel mothers-in-law and sisters-in-law who relentlessly torment their daughters-in-law. But the opposite can happen too. Let me tell you about how a domineering daughter-in-law tore our family apart and then how we rebuilt it. My name is Sarah, I'm 25. Just recently, I got married to Mike, who is 3 years my senior, through a workplace romance, and I'm at the peak of happiness. When it was time to leave the home I had lived in for many years, my grandmother said, "We will miss you too. But Sarah, live happily. Remember, you can always come back if anything happens," as she sent me off. My parents got divorced when I was in middle school and my brother Adam was in high school. It wasn't an age where we absolutely needed a mother, and both Adam and I facing entrance exams. We ended up living with our father for economic reasons. Our paternal grandmother took care of things like preparing meals and cleaning for us. The divorce was caused by my father's infidelity. Grandmother often said, "I truly regret what happened to your mother. My son isn't a bad person, but he has always been bad with women, or rather, he's too weak-willed to properly refuse temptations. To us siblings, he was a kind and good father, but marital and romantic relationships are a different matter, I suppose." Grandmother was a gentle and hard-working person. I've never seen her rest. She would always start cleaning some small corner or do her knitting whenever she had a moment. Grandmother knitted many sweaters and scarves for my brother and me. Even though my parents were divorced, I met with my mother quite often for meals or shopping, so I never felt particularly lonely. I think my mother really loved my father. Even after they separated, she often worried about my father. That's probably why she couldn't forgive his infidelity. I remember my mother crying throughout the funeral when my father suddenly passed away from a stroke 6 years ago. When my father died, my mother was already remarried, so living with her wasn't an option for us. Moreover, we couldn't leave our grandmother alone in such a big house, and my brother had the same opinion. Mother said she would fully support us if anything happened. And then, when I got married and left the house, it ended up being just my grandmother and Adam living in the old, large house. It's only a 15-minute drive from our new place, so I'll come to visit often because I want to eat Grandma's cooking, I said. I truly thought so and intended to do just that, but a year after I got married, Adam got married too. That was the beginning of everything. My 29-year-old brother got a woman 4 years his senior pregnant. I was surprised by what Emily, who was about to become my sister-in-law, said when we first met. We decided to get married because I got pregnant. I never really wanted to get married. As they're both old enough to know better, I thought that both are responsible. If she didn't want to get married, she should have taken precautions. I thought to myself, but I didn't say it out loud. Frankly, my impression of my brother's wife was bad. She might have been considered beautiful, but I thought her unpleasant personality was apparent. Despite claiming she didn't want to get married, the wedding and reception were quite lavish. I think my brother must have stretched himself thin. And there must have been some financial help from our grandmother. Adam, perhaps taking after our father, was kind-hearted or, to put it less kindly, weak-willed. It was clear he was already under his older wife's thumb. The first time I visited my grandmother's house after Adam's marriage, my sister-in-law told me, "You're married now, aren't you? You shouldn't come back here so often. Be mindful," she said in a condescending tone right off the bat. Though it irked me to do exactly what my sister-in-law wanted, I gradually found myself visiting Grandma's house less often. When the baby was born, I did go to give a gift, but I couldn't help but notice how my grandmother looked. She seemed much thinner than before. "Grandma, are you okay?" You seem to have lost some weight. Are you not feeling well? I asked grandmother. She smiled and said, I'm fine. At my age, being too heavy is hard on the knees. Losing a bit of weight is just right. She insists she's not in poor health, but grandma will be turning 77 next month. As someone who's always been particularly close to her, I can't help but worry. Grandma, it's your 77th birthday next month, isn't it? We should celebrate. I said, but she demurred, as always, no, dear. It's not necessary. We've just welcomed a great-grandchild. Then how about we celebrate the baby's arrival and your 77th birthday together? I suggested, thinking it was a great idea. But Grandma stubbornly refused, insisting, really, dear, I don't need any celebration. Just focus on the baby. I tried discussing it directly with my brother and his wife, but his wife dismissed the idea outright. Mixing the celebration of an old person, whose days are limited, with that of a newborn is just bad luck. Besides, if she says she doesn't want it, why force it, she retorted. What's with her? Taking advantage of Grandma's kindness and saying whatever she pleases. To bring up, she's having a little time to spare like that. I vented my frustration to my husband in anger. Calm down, Sarah. It's understandable you're upset, but if Grandma needs help, we'll be there for her. I'll support you. My husband reassured me, which was comforting, but I've never seen Grandma show any sign of weakness. That's why I'm worried. The following year, I became pregnant. When I was in my stable period and went to tell Grandma, my sister-in-law said to me, childbirth is really tough, you know. It's incredibly painful and difficult. Are you sure you're up for it, Sarah? She said in a condescending as if imparting some exclusive knowledge. I was extremely frustrated. I was also bothered by how my brother's nearly 2-year-old child was so attached to Grandma. Even when his mother called for her, she would hide behind Grandma, not wanting to go to her. Oh, please. She's completely charmed the great-grandchild. My sister-in-law complained unpleasantly. What an outrageous thing to say. I knew everything from my brother had told me. After giving birth, my sister-in-law took a 2-month break before returning to her full-time job. During those 2 months of maternity leave, it seemed she left most of the housework and childcare to Grandma. I couldn't believe she would offload her child onto Grandma, despite my brother's repeated protests. Isn't it because you've left the childcare entirely to Grandma that the child is so attached to her? It's only natural for the child to become fond of the person who's always there taking care of them. I pointed out, well, you see, I never wanted a child or even to get married in the first place. I have no intention of quitting my job, as I'm needed at work. You might not understand, she retorted, always managing to say something infuriating. She must be under some witch's curse. If she accidentally speaks a kind word, the curse will make her face swell to double its size. That's the only way I can make sense of it. As I was leaving, the lady from the house across the street called out to me. She's been a family friend since I was a child, a bit of a chatterbox, but a genuinely caring and sociable person. She told me that when she and some other neighbors greeted my sister-in-law, who was back at work shortly after childbirth. With a "You're already back at work even though your baby's just been born? Are you all right?" My sister-in-law claimed she had been ousted to work and her daughter taken by Grandma. Of course, I denied it all, and the lady, having known Grandma even longer than I have, didn't believe a word of my sister-in-law's story. She must have been worried enough about it to bring it up with me. If we leave my sister-in-law unchecked, there's no telling what kind of lies she might spread around the neighborhood. I was thinking it was high time to have a serious talk with my brother about her when suddenly, Grandma collapsed. She fell while weeding the garden and was taken to the hospital by ambulance. It happened on a sunny day in June. It was the lady from across the street who called the ambulance. They couldn't reach my sister-in-law, and my brother was tied up in a meeting, so they contacted me. Fortunately, it was just a mild case of heat stroke. By the time I arrived, Grandma had regained consciousness. "Grandma, are you okay?" I asked. But instead of worrying about herself, she was concerned about her great-grandchild. "Oh, Sarah. Is the little one all right?" She should be napping in the room where she can be seen from the garden. It would be so sad if she woke up and found herself alone. It seems Grandma had been keeping an eye on her great-grandchild napping while she was weeding. You should let Adam do the weeding, Grandma. You mustn't overexert yourself. Just go quickly and check on the house. If she wakes up crying, give her the bunny toy. That usually stops her tears. She urged me. Considering her age, Grandma was admitted to the hospital for a day just to be safe. I hurried over to Grandma's house and found my niece still sound asleep in a room facing the garden. When I brought my niece back to the hospital, Grandma was asleep. Seeing Grandma, my niece, who seemed a bit scared by the hospital atmosphere, toddled over and asked, Grandma, are you okay? Does it hurt? Grandma woke up and gently stroked her head. Oh, good. I'm fine, dear. Sorry, Sarah, for making you worry, especially with the baby on the way. Even at such a time, Grandma was worried about my niece and me. Hey, Grandma. I heard from the lady across the street that Emily's been telling the neighbors you took her daughter away and forced her to work. Aren't you angry? Being exploited and lied about by someone like her makes me so mad. I was trying to keep my voice down in the hospital room, but I couldn't stop my tears. Grandma silently stroked my head. And then she whispered, yes. I think I want to leave that house. It was the first time I'd ever heard Grandma express such vulnerability. That's right, Grandma. You don't have to work for Emily. Come live with us. I truly meant it. But Grandma said, thank you, Sarah. But I can't. What would happen to this little one if I wasn't there? She stroked the head of her bewildered great-granddaughter lying beside her bed. She has her parents. They'll figure something out. Just then, my brother, the father in question, left work early and arrived. Grandma, are you okay? I told you I would take care of the weeding next time I was off, he said. From what my brother said, it seemed like his wife had commanded Grandma to do the weeding. How far was she planning to exploit Grandma? Come on, Adam. Do something about her. At this rate, Grandma's going to break down. And why did you even marry her in the first place? I knew it was futile to say, but I couldn't help it. According to Adam, he hadn't realized she was so selfish when they were dating. I've heard of husbands changing after marriage, but it seems wives can do the same. I always thought that wives grow more assertive over the years. But there are people like my sister-in-law too. What Adam told me was beyond my imagination. Grandma was treated almost like a slave by my sister-in-law. Adam said he had scolded and argued with her, but she didn't care, and all he could do was help Grandma as much as possible. It's embarrassing to admit, but Adam, like our father and Grandma, is too kind-hearted. I was determined not to let Grandma return to that house. The dream I had that night was the worst. My brother, Grandma, and I were desperately rowing a boat under a violently rocking ship. Whenever we rested our hands, a whip would come flying. The one wielding the whip was my sister-in-law. I decided to have Grandma come to my place for an emergency evacuation when she was discharged the next day. It was the weekend, and both Adam and Emily had the day off. They would manage without Grandma. I wanted Grandma to rest and to think about what to do next. Adam seemed resolved, saying, I love my daughter, but I think this marriage was a mistake. I'll take responsibility. He took his daughter and left. When Grandma set foot in my 2-bedroom apartment upon discharge, she exclaimed, oh my, it's quite cozy, isn't it? Cleaning will be easy here. Which made me laugh. She had lived in that large, old house for so many years. So her reaction was understandable. When I first moved out and started living here, I was also surprised by how small it was. Thanks to that, my husband teased me for a while, calling me a princess. Despite my insistence on resting, Grandma kept busy, cleaning around and cooking for us. While we were relaxing with coffee after dinner, my brother called. He said his daughter was throwing a tantrum and refusing to take a bath. She always wants to bathe with a ducky and won't go in without it. What's ducky, he said, but I couldn't deal with these complaints every time. What's her mother doing? To my surprise, he said she had gone on an overnight trip with a friend since this morning. Grandma, piecing together the conversation, informed us that a ducky referred to a duck toy located on the shelf in the dressing room. A trip, even though Grandma had just collapsed? Even if it was booked in advance, to go on a trip leaving behind a young daughter? It was clear that my sister-in-law was entirely unreliable when it came to childcare. Adam, I'm coming over tomorrow. I can't stand this anymore. She's the worst as a mother and as a wife. You need to get your act together. Hearing this, it seemed Adam finally made up his mind. Understood. She'll probably be back by after 7 p.m. He then hung up the phone. Good. I'm sure Ducky will be relieved too. I called my mom. I had updated her a few times about my sister-in-law, but it seemed she hadn't realized the extent of the situation. Adam really takes after your father. He can't stand up to women. My mom sighed, offering her full support once she understood the situation. The next day, upon her return from the trip, my Emily was met not only by her husband and me, her sister-in-law, and grandma, but also by my husband. Our mother, and her new husband, 6 of us in total. Grandma had put my niece to bed. What's with the crowd? Why are there people here I don't know? Who are you? She demanded, addressing my mother and her new husband. That's our mother, and next to her is her new husband. I said, oh, the woman who left her child to move out of this house? What do you want coming here all of a sudden? With that comment, I think she completely turned my mother against her. I called them. My mom's husband is a lawyer. I revealed, watching Emily's slight shock at the mention of a lawyer. Adam then decisively said, I want a divorce. We can't continue together. What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? What did I do? She screamed. Well, you did. You exploited our dear grandma. Going on a trip leaving your daughter behind when grandma collapsed. Dumping almost all household chores and childcare on grandma. I listed calmly to Emily. But I work, isn't it normal for the family to help out, she retorted. But you're not contributing your income to the household, right? You're using it for trips, clothes, and makeup. I pointed out, shocked when I first heard this from my brother. Why should I be lectured by you? I never wanted to get married or have children. I was forced into this by Adam after getting pregnant. She claimed, portraying herself as the victim. Then Adam spoke up. I hate to bring this up here, but you were the one who said it was a safe day, remember? I didn't really want to hear such personal details from my brother, but it seemed like the pregnancy was planned by her. And I heard you on the phone with your friend. Saying how at your age, people start nosing around. And it might be nice to get married and have a kid. Living in a house with a yard, the eldest son with no mother-in-law around. And the sister-in-law married off, seemed like a good deal to me. My usually quiet brother burst out. She turned red and yelled, what? Were you eavesdropping? It's not eavesdropping if you're speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. Even grandma heard. You don't care about anyone but yourself. So it doesn't matter who's listening, right? My brother countered. She refused to back down, even then. Humph. You have no proof. You can't just unilaterally decide to divorce me. I'm the mother, after all. You can't separate me from my child. After all the childcare she'd left to grandma, now she's playing the mother card? We have proof. I said, pulling out my phone. I had videos transferred from Adam showing her daily dismissive remarks and how she treated grandma like a slave. Adam may be timid, but he must have been seething with anger inside. When he started considering divorce, he thought of gathering evidence, hence the recordings and videos. With this much evidence, there's no way you'll get custody. If you refuse to agree to the divorce, we can go to mediation. But you don't stand a chance. Remember, we have a lawyer on our side. I said, glancing at my mother's husband who nodded silently in agreement. Then Adam promptly laid out the divorce papers on the table. The video showed Emily lounging on the sofa watching TV while grandma diligently took care of the great-grandchild. Changing her and attending to her needs. What the hell? What is this? Don't joke with me. Her face turned bright red as she angrily agreed to divorce, gathered her belongings in her room, and stormed out, saying, "I'm relieved to be leaving this big, old house. I'll come back for my things later, don't you dare throw them away." After she left, the room fell into a serene silence as if a storm had passed. "Thank you, everyone. I'll make some coffee." Grandma's words brought everyone back to reality. "Let me do it, Grandma. Just sit down." I insisted, heading to the kitchen to boil water. "It's been a while since I've been in this kitchen," my mother commented as she helped set out the snacks. "Mom, thanks for bringing your husband. Having a lawyer with us made a huge difference." I expressed my gratitude. "Yes, it was a good decision. She was quite a handful. I might have left this house, but I want you, your brother, and Grandma to be happy." "I mean it," my mother said with a smile. As we all relaxed with coffee and snacks, Grandma made an important announcement. "I've been thinking about rebuilding this house. Would you all consider living here then?" When I left for marriage, Grandma's words, "You can always come back," seemed ominous, but now they were coming true in a different, happier form. About a year later, a magnificent two-family house was completed. It's a bit of an unconventional two-family house, with the first floor being fully accessible and serving as the living space for Grandma, my brother, and my niece. The second floor serves as the living space for my husband and me, along with our newborn child. By the way, the baby turned out to be a boy. In addition to the main kitchen, there's a mini kitchen on the second floor, making it convenient for preparing simple meals. There's also an airy sunroom that's perfect for letting the kids play, even on rainy days. With ample rooms, the house can accommodate more children in the future, and even if my brother remarries, there will be plenty of space for everyone. As a side note, my son was born with ease. I'd love to share this with my former sister-in-law, who used to boast about her childbirth experience. The cost of the rebuild was fully covered by Grandma. I wonder if it's really okay for us to live in such a fine house by sheer luck. My husband was initially embarrassed, but now he's completely settled in and gets along well with my grandmother, brother, and niece. As for my Emily, after the divorce, she moved back to her parents' cramped 2 LDK public housing, which couldn't accommodate her and her vast collection of clothes, shoes, and bags. Apparently, Emily had no choice but to rent a cheap studio apartment to live in. Despite being divorced, she still has the right to visitation with her daughter. However, after not attempting to see her daughter for over half a year, she seemingly learned about the house reconstruction and audaciously approached Adam for reconciliation. Truly, she is a person of endless selfishness and audacity. Of course, Adam coldly rejected her. It's surprising to learn Grandma was so wealthy, I reflected. If Emily had known, she would have treated Grandma differently. And she never agreed to the divorce. "Your father and your late grandfather left us well provided. I was thinking of giving you and your brother a living inheritance. But after she came into our lives, I decided to keep our finances a secret," Grandma shared, making us shudder at the thought of what could have been if Emily had gotten her hands on everything. "I want you and Adam to be happy," Grandma said, having endured so much yet astutely judging the true nature of Emily. "But wanting to rebuild the house was my selfish wish. I wanted to spend my remaining years peacefully with my grandchildren and great-grandchildren," Grandma admitted somewhat guiltily. "Grandma, don't say that. They say life now lasts 100 years. We need you to stay healthy at least until the great-grandchildren get married," I insisted. Grandma smiled gently. "That would be lovely. Watching Grandma, I hope to live a peaceful and happy life surrounded by grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the future too." People like Emily, who only think of themselves and lack compassion for others, might end up living as they please but leave this world in solitude. It's too late to have regrets when one grows old and finds themselves without anyone by their side. One day, I heard a company went bankrupt. The company's name sounded familiar, and I realized it was where Emily used to work. Her first misfortune arrived sooner than I expected. I don't know if she actually lost her job, but her future seems likely to be unstable, akin to a rolling stone. Recently, Adam seems to have started seeing someone new. Don't make the same mistake again, okay? I cautioned him. Responding to my warning, Adam quipped, I know. One strong-willed woman in the family is enough for me, prompting laughter from everyone. Even my son and niece, not understanding the context, joined in the laughter. When the adults are smiling, the children smile too.